Can we go back to CDR, by the way? It's been years and I still hover my haste stat. No, we can't. So CDR is a problematic stat because the more CDR you have, the stronger CDR is. And it's the same thing with damage reduction. So, sorry if I flashbanged all of you. I'm not as good at doing this as certain other popular streamers. So, let's talk about this in terms of damage reduction. Okay, so naively, people think that damage reduction is linear. And what I mean by that is, you might think that, oh, if you go from 0 to 10% damage reduction, that's 10% DR, right? And that's the same as going between 10 and 20% damage reduction, right? That's another 10% DR, right? But it's not. Actually, every point of damage reduction you get that is closer to 100 is significantly stronger than the one before it. So, as an example, let's say we are doing 100 damage. 100 damage, okay? And you have 90% DR, right? The end result of that is 10 damage, right? You're taking 10 damage. Now, if you go up to 94% DR, so you get 4%, right? You have gained, if you go up to 94% DR, I should show the damage here. That's 10 damage. If you go up to 94%, oh no, I'm gonna get into my thing. Okay, 10 damage, there we go. If you go up to 94% DR, so you just gained 4% DR, right? You're now gonna take, what is that? That's 6 damage. So that is from 90 to 94% DR, that is a, what is that, a 40% decrease? That's a 40% decrease in damage. Wait, my brain is breaking here. That's a 40% decrease in damage. Right, okay, cool. So we went from 10 to 6. Yeah, 40% decrease in damage for that 4%. So let's go then to 98. That's another 4%, right? But 98 is going to bring us down to 2. And 2 is a 66% decrease in damage. 40%, 66%. Am I getting that right, everybody? So basically, I got myself 4% here, and I went from taking 10 damage to taking 6 damage, which is a 40% decrease. And then I got another 4%, and I went from taking 6 damage to taking 2 damage, which is a 66% decrease. Okay, great. So basically, this first 4% here is worse than this next 4%. Every extra percent you get, in terms of the overall damage you're taking, is much, much stronger. And it's the same thing with CDR. So instead of having this being damage, let's say this is cooldown. You have a 100-second cooldown, and you get a 90% reduction in cooldown. It goes down to 10. Okay? Now you go up to 94, goes down to 6, it's a 40% decrease. And if you go into 98, that's a 66% decrease, right? And so basically every single point of cooldown reduction is stronger than the previous. And so it created this problem where we had to cap cooldown reduction at 40 because every single time you bought cooldown reduction, it would get stronger and stronger and stronger. And this also created a thing where when you had build, if your build had CDR in it, you really wanted to cap it. You really wanted to get to 40 every single game. And so it created this thing where we had this stat that was a little unclear and didn't really tell you what it was actually doing and was very, very powerful the more of it you got, such that we had to cap it. And then when we capped it, that put a lot of restrictions on item design because an item having some ability haste, depending on where it was in the build, could be really, really, really bad because you'd be throwing out the haste if you already were capped. And so a lot of items we just couldn't put haste on because it'd be like, well, you'll cap if you take this. And so we changed it to ability haste because ability haste is linear. Ability haste is you get the same percent reduction every point, no matter what. And so ability haste, the way the math works out on ability haste is every point of ability haste is just as good as the previous point. Whereas every point of cooldown reduction is better than the previous point. And so that's kind of what's going on there. That's my brilliant explanation for all of you. He's saying that taking 4 seconds off of something when it gets to a 36 cooldown isn't a power diff to taking 4 seconds off of it at 32 seconds. It is because of the number of casts of it. So let's think about this in terms of a 1 second cooldown spell. Obviously, there's not a lot of 1 second cooldown spells, but there's spells that get down that low, right? That would be like a DPS spell for someone like Vlad, right? I'm using 1 because it's an easy round number, but like if you take 60% off of a 1 second cooldown spell, you're down to 40%, right? And so you're doing what you're doing like what, 60% more damage, some amount like that. And then if you take off like 80% of one cooldown spell, you're doing like significantly more percent damage than you were beforehand. It's about the steps. It's about the steps. So the way to look at it isn't the difference between 100 versus 80 and 100 versus 90. It's about taking the step from 80 to 90. Is the way to think about it. There's another way to, like, so I know Fat Crit is being a little toxic with some of the things he's saying, but I think like it's a generally confusing concept, so I don't think it's unreasonable to like think that way about it. I'm trying to find like another way to like help people think about it. Here's another way to think about it. Okay? Watch. Gotta get the paint back up. This is for people. Look, math is weird. Okay, so we go back and we're doing 100 damage. Ugh. We go back, we're doing 100 damage, right? 100 damage, and once again you have 90% DR. That brings you down to 10 damage, right? And then we do it again. We do the 94 and the 98. And so this gets us to 6, and this gets us to 2. Think about the number of hits it takes to kill this person if your auto attack does 2 damage. So if this guy has 100 health, right? Let's say the person has 100 health, okay? And your auto attack does 2 damage. Wait, no, what is it? What is the word? What is the word I'm looking for? Like, think about it in terms of number of auto attacks at any certain amount to kill a person. Right? That's like... God, man, it's been so long since I taught calculus. You know, I used to be a substitute teacher and I taught calculus. I used to be good at this. But unfortunately, my brain has rotted away playing League of Legends. And so, yeah, like 90%. So if you're doing 10 damage on your attack, it's going to take you 10 attacks to kill this 100 health person. Okay, so yeah, your attack does 100 damage, okay? You're doing 10 damage on your attack. It's going to take you 10 attacks to kill this 100 health person, right? When we go to 94, instead of 10 attacks, it's going to take now 16.6 attacks. So we'll say 17, right? Because we're going to round up because it's number of attacks, right? And if we go down here, we go down to 2 attacks. Now we're doing 2 damage. It's going to take 50 attacks. Wait, am I stupid? I got to be... Yeah, it's going to take 50 attacks. I'm not dumb, right? This is 100 divided by 10 is simple math. I'm just not confident. 100 divided by 6. Okay, yeah, see? So you see how like much this increased at every step? Like that's what's going on. Is there's like these massive step increases every single extra percent DR you got. That's the crazy thing, right? From going from 90 to 94, we need 7 more attacks. But from going from 94 to 98, we need like 33 more attacks. Oh, my webcam is blocking it. Shoot. Here. Ah! Flashbang. Yeah. So that's kind of what's going on. That maybe illustrates it more visually as to why this extra 4% is a much bigger deal than this first 4%. Yeah. Okay, so cool. We talked about math. Hooray. Yeah. So that's what's going on there. Think about it in League of Legends terms, okay? The more DR you have, each point of DR makes it significantly harder to kill someone. You need more and more and more attacks to do it. And like you can also apply that same concept to CDR. So there you go. Except in CDR's case, think about it in terms of damage coming from your spell and how many times you would have to cast that spell to you would need to cast that spell to kill someone. Each extra point gets you more casts in a lower amount of time. Bah! Brain hurts. Okay, we're back. We're back. We're back. Okay. I hope everybody liked those explanations. This is why you came to the stream, I'm sure. For those big, juicy math problems. Everybody just wants to know how to add. Me too. Yeah. What does doctor stand for? Doctor. Oh, DR? Damage reduction. So this is fun. One of the reasons I like this conversation is this is what taught me how to be good at Path of Exile. So if you play the game Path of Exile, great game by the way, there is a stat called Lightning Resist and Frost Resist and Fire Resist. And if you're any good at the game, you know you have to cap your resist all the time, otherwise you will instantly die. And when I first started playing Path of Exile, I did not understand that concept. And so I was like, I've got 65% Frost Resist, I'm fine. And then I would just die, and I had no idea how to do it. Like, I had no idea why. And then my buddy came in, and he educated me on damage reduction. And he was like, hey dude, the reason you're dying is because 65% Frost Resist is night and day compared to 70% Frost Resist in terms of the amount of damage you can take. And he showed me the math, and I was like, and then now I'm a Path of Exile god. Do the math again, I wasn't listening. Don't worry, I'll keep this VOD up. But yeah, Fat Crit, thank you for listening, and I hope we got there. Because yeah, it's weird. It's a weird concepts. This is also like the other weird math concept in League of Legends is flat pen. And I'm not gonna go into that deep of it, but for all of you here, if you want like more math education, when you read flat pen, there's a reason we call it lethality. Okay? A lot of people are like, why do you call flat pen lethality? Why don't you just call it flat armor pen? And that's because flat armor pen tricks you. You read flat armor pen and you're like, well, that's just good against tanks, right? Because they've got armor. But the way the math works out is actually kind of similar to some of the ways math for damage reduction works out, in that the more flat armor pen, the more armor they have, the worse flat armor pen becomes in terms of percentage damage. And so the reason we give assassins lethality, and why we call it lethality, is because flat armor pen is better for killing squishies and worse versus tanks, and we call it lethality to not trick you into buying it when you think you're fighting a tank. Which, by the way, is another thing I used to do. No joke, when I first started playing League of Legends, there was this beautiful item. It was called the Brutalizer. It cost 1337 gold, and it had CDR, armor pen, and AD on it. Best item in the game. And I would buy it versus tanks, because I was just like, it's got armor pen, and I'm losing to that Malphite. I need Brutalizer to kill Malphite through all that 500 armor he has. And so I was one of those players who would get trapped by flat armor pen, and which is why we renamed it. So that's another math thing for all of you to think about, is make sure you are not buying flat armor pen to kill tanks.